Howdy. It's me again. Got some green tea this week. Because I'm all out of black tea. Okay, Nessie, you can't be in it. You can't be in afternoon tea. I'm sorry to tell you. Just waiting for Gianni. I'll just spoil this now. Absolutely no idea what we're going to talk about. None whatsoever. So we'll see about that. Okay, hold on a second. Gotta resend the link to Gianni. Oh, that was the wrong way. It's really weird looking at yourself in the camera because it reverses it. And so it's very confusing when I'm trying to brush my hair out of my face. All right. As I wait, I'll just put honey in my tea. Product of Brazil. Thanks, Brazil. Thanks, Brazilian bees. I really should be having black tea because I need to wake up, but this is all I have because I've been on a tea binge, so. It's more honey. Nessie, I can't have you doing this. I really can't. I love you and the people would love you, but no. No, please. Please, no. We just can't have it. I love you, but no. She's the best ally, but, you know. Oh, they're there. Why is it on this side? This side? Don't know. All right. Hey.
Hello. Sorry, I was out running errands and I walked in the door 4 minutes ago.
You were out running errands? You're like my grandmother. My grandmother runs errands at like 8 a.m. because she's like, nobody's at the Walmart at 8 a.m.
That's exactly right.
Mm-hmm. Oh my God, y'all.
I could be friends with Grandma.
Oh my God.
Well, because I was out running errands and driving, I did not get a chance to respond to your text message. But that's okay. What is a free flow conversation? We're going to find out together.
We sure are.
But should we kick off with intros?
Oh yeah, thanks for reminding me. Hi everyone. Welcome to afternoon tea for two. My name is Erica and I use they them pronouns.
And I am Gianni, or just G, they them pronouns as well.
And I see you have is it L or LA added on too?
Yeah. So it is one thing that I've been thinking. Well, one thing that I think about always, and maybe this might lead into a fruitful conversation. Language is something that I just care about a lot. It has a lot of power behind it, and I think most of us use it really uncritically. Although that's changing. In Spanish, my native language, it is all binary. Mm-hmm. Male, female, binary. Even the word non-binary is masculine, right? Like,
yeah.
And there's not a gender neutral pronoun until very recently, where people have started using ella. So there's ella, which is she, él, which is he. And then people are like, well, we need one, so here it is. But because it's not in the language, anyone who's not a native speaker, and more specifically, anybody that's not a queer native Spanish speaker, or, you know, just somehow within that community, they just don't think that the word exists at all, or that it's not valid, or that it's only like this niche word used in this little group, and it's not that. Like, it's been introduced into the language, and now it's not going away. So it's kind of like to make that statement, and, you know, like running in the circles that I run, specifically with academia, where English is seen as like the scientific language, or the language that research has to come in, you know, like if it's not in English, then it's not valid. So kind of introducing it there to let people know that like English is not the universal language, not everybody speaks it. So yeah, just me doing my usual rebellious things.
Yeah, no, I'm glad you explained that. Part of me thinks about if I wasn't so devoted to being an artist and being poor, I think maybe I would be interested in being like a linguist, because language is so interesting. Like, it's so interesting how it evolves, and but also how like we just like it's so, I mean, because of the nature of it, because it's you know, oral communication, oral stories, oral history, like, you know, it depends upon there being the people to tell it and, you know, pass it on. And so there are several cultures that are really good at that, at, you know, with their oral history. Like, you know, so many like Native American cultures are so dependent on their oral histories and stuff. But people are very gatekeepy at the same time, whereas like language is such like, you know, I think about all the time, you know, like the singular they them pronoun, people, that's like the talking point around linguists lately. It's just so interesting because like Shakespeare literally made up words whenever he wanted to. And now we just have words because he put them in a play, because he was like, there's no word for this thing that I want, so I'm making it up. And you know, it'd be interesting to go back and see how people thought of it at the time versus now, where we just sort of accept it. And then now when someone like makes up a word, or Aave is very similar in that way too, where it's like there are words that we take from that and is very much what culture revolves around. But it's very much not like respected outside of like, you know, like a linguist class or a language class inside of like a historically Black college might be very different than a than a language class in a very white college. And it's just really interesting to me.
Yeah, it's exactly. Well, if ever you do change your mind, I would love to see you as a linguist. Like, linguists are some of my favorite people. Our department actually used to have a sociolinguistics program. It has since been put to rest, RIP sociolinguistics. But the work coming out of it, and I took critical discourse analysis, but we won't go down that route right now. Yeah, like there's just so much there. I find it fascinating. And language is a living thing, and like you were saying, it's a cultural living thing, right? Like, I also see that like when my work, like, is it migrant or is it immigrant? Is it undocumented or is it without citizenship, right? Like, and the way that you use those words really matters. Like, is it transgender or is it gender journey, right? Like, it, you know, why is it non-binary if that in some ways reifies that a binary exists, which it doesn't, right? Like, the nuance of language is fascinating to me. So I'm all for your professional life change.
It's interesting to me too, because like, you know, we've talked about language when it comes to telling people, changing pronouns or, change your name, whatever it is. And it's funny too that, like, for instance, the singular they them is so interesting because not everybody, but some people, it's funny how some people are are capable of using singular they them when they're not purposely trying to use it. And then when they purposely try to use it, they mess up all of their grammar.
Yeah.
Because this happens with my mom. My mom and one of Michael's relatives, my partner, does it too, where it's like when you hear them deliberately trying to use it, they mess up the whole syntax and then you'll hear them use it accidentally, and you're like, oh, you're trying so hard, and you're actually making it worse. Like my mom, like I'm not trying to embarrass my mom, not that she watches this, but my mom would be like, I think in the beginning, she's getting a lot better, but in the beginning she was like, I love they, and I was like as a pronoun, and then I realized she was trying to say I love you, and I was like, oh, mom, it's they is not a replacement for every referral to me. My name is not they now. Yeah, I was like, but I didn't, I didn't want to say anything because she was trying, but she'll ask me questions like that sometimes. And I'll be like, oh, you don't think about it so hard. You're thinking about it way too hard.
Yeah. I love that. Well, and like, there's that pushback of like, oh, like it's not right grammatically. I'm like, but you use, when you talk, and unfortunately we still say mailman instead of male person. But like you were saying, like it is in language as a singular, right? So like this pushback is really like such an empty argument. And then like words are introduced yearly, like dozens of words are introduced yearly into, the way that we codify language, right? Like through a dictionary, like bootylicious is in the dictionary, right? Like we can evolve language. So like I'm so over the they them argument. It's hard for me. I am so past it.
Yeah, I feel that. There's also this thing of like, speaking of histories and like language and what have you, like, I think about this a lot in the context of theater because like there's, for instance, one that I think about all the time is, are you familiar with the play / movie Rent?
Of course, yeah.
I mean, cultural institution. I actually went to school, like Adelphi University is where Jonathan Larson went to school, who wrote Rent. And so it's, you just talk about it all the time when you're there. But it's interesting because one of the characters, Angel, for like, it's not explicitly, like people don't really explicitly talk about it, but like, once I started exploring gender more and what it means, like I realized that Angel is almost certainly a trans woman. And it's not that the play deliberately doesn't say that she is, but it's sort of that thing where it's like, drag and transness were so like linked, back in the day. Like if you haven't watched Paris is Burning, required watching, because it shows how like drag queens and drag queen was not necessarily synonymous with trans woman, but like, or trans femme or trans in general, but they were very like, they didn't necessarily use transgender like we use now. Like if anything, they use like transsexual or transvestite, but even then, like, it wasn't so explicit. And so in Rent, they always cast a cis male actor to play Angel, which Angel does appear in like masculine dress, like the first or second time that we meet her. But then from then on, she uses Angel and she, her pronouns for the rest of the play. And like, it was just so interesting to me because I was like, it was just so wild to me because no one talks about that. Like, no one, when you're doing Rent or talking about Rent, no one talks about like Angel as a trans person. And I'm sure there are people who do, like queer people and spaces like that who do, but I had never heard it talked about that way. It was always just like Angel, the drag queen, which is like, it's another one of those things where it's like language is so interesting, and drag has become so, it's unfortunate that drag has become so like
Mainstream.
so not, yeah, mainstream in the way that it's like it belongs to cis men, cis gay men, when it's like it's so much more than that. And I'm not necessarily in the drag community, so I don't speak from a place in that way, but yeah, it's just interesting. It's like how very gatekeepy the um LGBTQ community can be, which is unfortunate because if you're in the community, it's because you don't have a lot of power.
Right. It's very fragmented.
Yeah.
I'm glad you brought that up because I love Rent. I haven't seen it in a little while, and I had never. I remember wondering if Angel was trans, but I've kind of dismissed it, and maybe I shouldn't have, for a reason similar to what you said, that like it wasn't announced within Rent. So I was like, well, she's not, right? Like, which is also faulty thinking on my behalf. I would love to rewatch it, and kind of having that in mind to see like what comes to mind for me. I think you're absolutely right, and drag is something that I think like the way in which it has been popularized and everybody, I feel like the cis straight white girls love it, right? Like they want to go see drag like on Sunday brunch, and that is just so, like it feels so sticky to me. And I do agree that it is the way in which maybe when it originated, it was a little bit more enmeshed with the trans community, maybe even as far as to say that like drag was one of like the only avenues for trans people to be themselves, express themselves safely in those spaces. I really will have to fact check that. I like, don't know my history, so I don't want to speak, like make proclamations that may not be true. But I do think that it has gone far, far away from that. And then today is something like drag seems to be a performance that you step into and then step out of.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it could be potentially diminishing for what it like diminishing if it's like if it's not thought of critically, right? And not like if the past of it, if the history of it is not understood, and also not respected, because drag, like I almost feel that there's a little bit of like a cis glare into it, like a fetishization potentially, that could be like diminutive to those communities. And then also the word crossdresser comes to mind when you were thinking of like going through like the other words. That is a word that I continue to see in kind of like, I don't want to say if it's like a fringe community, but I know that people use it, and it's a big word. Like the word, like people will say like CD, like I'm a CD, and like sex workspaces and stuff like that. And so I don't really know what to do with that word. I don't know if it's like private drag almost, or if it is a trans person that can live out their full trans life for some reason. I'm not sure.
Yeah, that's one of those words. I remember like back in the day, like years ago when I was looking at terms, I remember crossdresser being explained in the sense of like it is a cis person who enjoys dressing as a different gender, but they are not transgender. And that's how it was explained to me in that context. But again, like who decided that that's what that word meant? And like, Does it mean that to everybody? I'm sure. No. There's this, I don't know if you've seen this. I forget his name. I should look him up right now, actually, because I have the world at my fingertips. So why don't I? uh, there's this guy. Guy. Sorry, it's just this is the weirdest. I literally just had to look up guy who dresses in skirts and heels because I don't know his name. And immediately he was the first one that popped up. So there's
the
this
guy in the
guy.
UK.
Mm-hmm.
Yep,
Mark Bryan. He's actually American, but he lives in Germany, and he's a robotic engineer.
Okay.
And he is cis. I think he's straight. And he just loves wearing dresses and skirts and heels. Like he just that's what he wears. Like he wears it to work. He's got some great like power suits happening, like with the skirt and the heels.
I've seen them. Yeah, I know who you're talking about. What's his name?
Yeah. Mark Bryan.
Okay.
Yeah, and it's so interesting because like sometimes he makes the rounds occasionally on the internet and where people are like, "Can you believe this man is wearing heels and a skirt and is not gay or trans?" Like it's so interesting because I think would people consider him a crossdresser? Because then it brings in the whole thing of like, well, it's very commonplace now for people to be like, clothes don't have any gender. So to say cross-dresser implies like, yeah.
That's what I was about to ask you, like how you felt about that, because I do think that it reifies the binary, right? Like you're crossing from one, from A to B or B to A sort of thing.
Well, that's like, what word I hate? Gender swap, which is a big one, because again, in like media, or in musical theater and stuff like that, like people will sing a song that is written for a different gender, and they'll say, gender swapped version of this or blah blah blah. And I hate the word swap because I don't know. Actually, I'm going to continue with this Google adventure. I need to know what exactly the word swap implies, because to me it feels like two. You switch two. Whereas the word like gender bend doesn't like bother me so much because it's like it's not as binary feeling.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Well, hold on. A few things. Back to Mark. I suppose I haven't given it a lot of attention because I did read that he was straight and white, and that's about all I needed to know. Like that matters a lot in what he gets to get away from, right? Same thing with I cannot stand this little boy, Harry Styles. Like, like I honestly don't even want to talk about him. But I really, going back to like a critical analysis of these things, if they were not white and, skinny privileged people, they wouldn't be able to get away with that and be like valorized for what they're doing, because what they're doing, Black people and brown people have been doing forever, and getting beat the fuck up for it.
Well, it's like when you brought up Bad Bunny. Like I continuously hear about Harry Styles, but I don't really hear about Bad Bunny. I mean, I don't think Bad Bunny has worn dresses like often, but the whole thing about Harry Styles is like he wore a dress once for a photo shoot or whatever, and people lost their mind.
Yeah, but like Lil Nas X has been doing that. I think, is it Jaden Smith, one of the Will Smith babies, has also been doing that. There's an NBA player who has a trans kid that has also been wearing dress. Like it just, people like to look at white people on TV or on media, right? Like, and that's where I just get over it. Like it's not special, right? Like you're doing shit because you're white and getting away. It's like the stupid show. Like is it Pranked? Do you remember like on MTV that there were like a group of white boys that would go do dumb shit. Jackass, maybe, is that?
Oh yeah,
You know what I
like
mean? Like it's
Evo
just
and
it's
them.
a rate. Like I can't. Anyway, we're gonna move on from that because I will get irritated and I'm already irritated.
That makes me wonder, like I had seen, like I'm interested in your opinion about it. I had seen someone, it's a podcaster, so I don't think you would know them because I don't think you're not a big podcast person. But they were I don't want to say called out. And it was on Twitter, which is like, it's very interesting how different social medias have their own like reputation for what they carry and like what their dominant like vibe is. It's so interesting to me. It's endlessly interesting to me because it'll be like someone will say that something happened and they'll be like, well, it was on Twitter. And you're immediately like you already have a sense of like what that means. They got called out for, I don't know if the word is queer baiting, but basically taking from queer culture when they are white, cis, and straight. I mean, he uses he him pronouns, but he paints his nails. He dyes his beard a lot and his hair. But also uh he makes jokes occasionally about like, you know, male celebrities or whatever being hot, or like, oh, I would totally like go for him or whatever. And he like apologized and was like, you know, I'm going to take some time off from Twitter because like you know, I hear you guys and I want to be better. And I just was like, also, I just heard the other day that Billie Eilish just came out with a new music video or something, and people were saying that she was queer baiting because like it's like her and a bunch of other girls like having a slumber party or whatever in the video or something. And you know, she said like, I love girls, like in the caption or in relation to it, and people were saying that like she's queer baiting. And I just was like wondering, because like there are other people who are like, well, at what point is something queer baiting, and at what point is someone just like, you know, existing or like trying things, you know what I mean? Like
Yeah. I have heard the term. I haven't engaged with it because to me it falls into the umbrella of, I don't know if it falls into the umbrella or if it's like a product of a cancel culture that like there's like, it's very carceral logic. And what I mean by that is that you want to tell people that they're wrong. I think we're kind of saying the same thing. Like, I do believe that people queer bait, if you will. And what I mean by that is that they'll engage, it's appropriation is really what it is, right? Like you saw something, it's getting attention, it's sexy in like the marketing, like clickbaity way. So then you incorporate into your platform uncritically, right? Like that goes for queer material and other material, right? Like it's, you know, for the last 18 months, it's been going on like Black culture. Juneteenth is another example, right? Like, and there is a lot of uncritical use, and that should be addressed. But the moment that we just default to saying like, oh, that's queer baiting, that's queer baiting, that's queer baiting, like we're becoming the police, right? Like, let people be, like, and if they fuck up, like, the onus is not always on the public to try to like reproduce this cancel culture thing, and that like that's where it leads for me. That's just what it feels like. But I don't know. Maybe I'm in the minority with that opinion. Like I rather think, I'm not gonna say that I give the benefit of the doubt easily, but I would really like to think that people aren't being shitty just for the sake of being shitty, right? Like, because it's just taxing to police everybody else's behavior. I don't know. What do you think?
well, no, yeah, I definitely agree. I mean, especially because like isn't that exactly what we're fighting for? Like, isn't the whole
Right.
point
Yeah. To be able to do like, yes.
to be able to do whatever you want as far as like, you know, your gender, your sexuality, your, you know, whatever, whether it's painting your nails or wearing a dress or whatever the fuck, like I think it is. Yeah, I think it is more about, honestly, it's more about the reaction from other people than it is about the person doing the thing.
And it's very like stay in your lane, which what that is, it's reaffirming the lines and the boundaries that, like you said, we're trying to break down, right? Like with Billie Eilish, and Billie Eilish, like I don't know a lot about her. I know she's well educated. It comes from a wealthy family of art, like open-minded liberal artist sort of family. Like that's about all I know. I have not seen the video, but like fuck, if she says I love girls, I'm like, good for you for being able to say that and not being like, oh, Billie Eilish is a lesbian, right? Like, just fucking let her. And this, like, I don't know. I'm just kind of over caring about like those tiny things, or frankly, I maybe just not. I don't have the time for it, quite literally. You know?
I mean, honestly, I think for some people it's like a hobby.
Oh yeah, yeah,
like
yeah. That's what I mean. Like the police, and it's kind of like a power trip. Like I get to tell you, no, you can't paint your nails, or I get to tell you, like, oh, you're straight, you can't say I like girls, right? Like, why? Like, where? What did that accomplish, right?
Well, and I think, yeah, for some people that might be the only power they have.
Right.
Like we talked about that with the J.K. Rowling thing. Like, do I think that J.K. Rowling should get death threats? No, because I don't think anybody really should get death threats. But like, is she in the wrong? Yes, 100%. But also, like ContraPoint said this in the video she did about J.K. Rowling, that like she was like, speaking to JK, she was basically saying, like, please just take a second. Like, I know it sucks to get death threats online because I've gotten them. But you have so much power and money and influence. And for some of these people, this is all they have,
Yeah.
is like their Twitter followers. And so and it's the sign of somebody who's been oppressed and has no power trying to assert themselves in some way. And even though it's not right, it's like, as much as I don't think anyone should get death threats, I also probably wouldn't try and get that person arrested. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, and like the point, like if the point, J.K. Rowling is a good example, or even what's her name, the problematic one, Caitlyn Jenner, where there's these calls and people are mad, and again, going back to like cancel culture tactics, and the way that it's being done, it no longer looks for a call to accountability, even though that's kind of like what the makeup on it is, right? It's like, no, you're doing wrong, but in that very attacky way that you're describing, like that will never get us to accountability, right? Like that just hurts people. And again, I really, and I mean that intentionally, like it's very policey, it's very carcerologic, it's very blamey, it's very like, you fucked up, now we don't care about you, like go stare at the corner, right? Like that will not encourage somebody to take accountability for their actions. If the conversation were to change and be like, look, actually, like this is how you're hurting people, this is your platform, and sans death threat, that might make a person reflect. But if you're threatening somebody, now like that's not it, right? Like,
yeah.
But I don't know where that gets lost, or what the intervention to change that is. I really do think that we have to lead with care and connection, and that will get us further than cancel culture.
Yeah, I agree. I never fault anybody for being angry, but I try to be, give the benefit of the doubt, like you said, when I can, as much as I can,
I know we are I don't think we have time for this conversation, but I really
you always know something to bring up right at the end where it's like, oh, this will start a whole nother AT.
Well, I was going to text it to you yesterday as an idea for a topic, but honestly, I was just like too beat up. Let me see if I did. I wrote it down. So I remember.
Of course you did.
All right. I couldn't decide if this was I'll tell you how I thought of it originally. Are you ready? We don't have
I
time.
guess so.
We're gonna do it. All right. We can save it for next time.
I mean, we're gonna have to. I mean, just say it, and
right.
I will react, but then I will
All right.
keep it all
Sarah
in.
agrees. This is a real story that happened this week, and I don't know why this conversation made me think of it. Intersectionality is when your trans friend who does sex work asks you if you would like to partake in a paid threesome for a white cis straight dude. She's nice. He's nice, she tells me. You still need the money, right? She asks. She adds that she was hesitant to ask me in case I would be offended. She knows it's not my thing. Oddly enough, I was not offended, but then I was. Now I'm still sitting with it. For a fleeting second, I considered if I could ever. I hurt for those who don't have a choice. Oh. I know, it was a lot, and we gotta do our shots, but just sit with it.
Wow, wow. I gotta be honest, I've not had a person ask me such a thing before. What an interesting life you lead.
I was like, should I be flattered? Should I be offended? I was like,
just standing there like, wow, yeah. You know what? Next time we will break into that 100%.
Good. You have a week to think about it.
to just sit and ruminate. I have a brand new vial of tea here, so I get to do my favorite thing.
Nice.
The little things.
It is the little things.
Yeah, some chat as we get our stuff ready. I'm planning planning is not the right word. It was a very last minute trip to Florida to see family members because I haven't seen them in a very, very long time. In fact, I realized just the other day, I don't know if I told you this, that it's been so long since I've seen my grandmother. The last time I saw her, I wasn't even binding. And now I don't even have breasts anymore.
Nothing.
Like that's so weird to me. But yeah, wow. we were talking about the ins and outs of traveling with injectable medication, which I'm sure, diabetic people and other folks who have injectable medication do all the time. And it's annoying if you're not bringing a checked bag. I didn't realize how annoying that would be.
A lot of extra effort.
Because if you're checking a bag, you can fucking bring guns if you have a checked bag. But meanwhile, my trans ass can't fucking. And I have to declare. That was the thing. It was like, yeah, you're totally fine, just bringing your supplies, but make sure you declare it. I'm like, God, I'm gonna have to get up to the front, putting my stuff and this poor tired TSA agent. I'm gonna have to be like, hi, there are syringes in my bag.
Well, and make sure that you have a prescription label on the box.
Thank you for telling me that, because I would have thrown this away.
So.
Yeah.
That keep it on there, because I mean, for tea they might not give you a difficult time, but I've had a friend had a muscle relaxer, one of the more strictly regulated ones, and she had taken, just stripped that little pharmacy sticker off of it, and they actually took it away from her because she could not verify that it was hers and it was a controlled substance. So
yeah, because my little vial of tea doesn't have, it just says that it's tea, but it doesn't have my name or anything on it. So thank you for saying that.
I took mine once like that because I threw everything in a little Ziploc bag and didn't think twice about it, and thankfully I was okay. But then I found out that actually then that happened to my friend, and ever since I've always just kept the box for travel.
Smart.
Boxes.
Yeah. Oh man. I'm doing my right leg today because I've decided. But After this week, I'm going to go back to writing it down because I can't keep living in this chaos. I can't.
I think I mentioned that months ago. I started writing it down because I couldn't keep up.
Okay. Deep breath time. All right. Okay. And deep breath in. And back out. And one more. Deep breath in. And back out. Never underestimate the power of a deep breath.
Never.
All right. Let me find a freckle. That looks like a pretty good spot. All right. You ready?
Erica.
As ready as you're gonna be?
You always ask me. I always want to give you a sarcastic answer. I'm like, do I have
to? Well, there's like literally ready, and then there's like psychologically ready, which like psychologically never really, but you know.
As ready as one is, right?
Exactly. All right. Okay, here we go. 1, 2, 3. Oh, I forgot to. Oh, did that one suck?
A little bit. So I don't know if you remember. A few months ago, I was like, "Oh, I like left leg because I have to like think so much about the coordination till I get to the other side."
It's distracting.
Yeah, and now I'm like, "Oh, this feels awkward. Like, am I holding it correctly?" But it was all right. Here we are. No blood.
Yeah, oh yeah, mine was like very. It was almost hard for me to find where to put the Band-Aid because there's no blood or nothing, which is like, oh, thank you so much. But yeah, I have not been going as fast as like a few months ago, and I'm like, why did I lose my mojo? Yeah. What happened?
I feel like sometimes it does depend on the day.
It really does. It really does.
Oh,
well, I liked our little ramble today. That was nice.
Yeah.
And next week we'll talk about that really interesting interaction that you had.
Just sit on that one. Yeah.
I sure will. But yeah, thanks everybody for being with us, and have a good week and take care of yourselves and others, and yeah, see you.
We'll do it again. Bye, everyone.
Bye.